You might think you have full control over drinking. Maybe you tell yourself you're fine, that real alcoholism looks like the people who can't hold jobs or slur through conversations. But what if it's quieter than that? What if it hides in the normal moments? The after-work glass of wine, the weekend beers, the champagne at birthdays? For millions, that's exactly how it starts. The truth is, dependence rarely begins loudly. It begins with the ordinary. Across the United States, nearly 30 million people meet the medical definition of alcohol use disorder. Yet most of them wouldn't describe themselves as alcoholics. They show up to work, they pay bills, they post vacation photos. And still, something underneath keeps reaching for the next drink. We spoke to people who've lived through that contradiction, people who once believed they were in control until they weren't. Their stories revealed small, easy-to-miss signals, subtle patterns that at first felt normal, until they weren't. The first sign is usually the simplest to dismiss. It's the idea that drinking is just part of living. You tell yourself you don't have a problem, you just enjoy a beer after mowing the lawn, a cocktail at dinner, a few shots on the weekend. Alcohol becomes so interwoven with daily life that the thought of removing it feels strange, even extreme. You compare yourself to someone worse off, the neighbor who drinks in the morning, the coworker who got a DUI, and you feel reassured. But denial doesn't always look like chaos. Sometimes it looks like routine. One man described it perfectly. "I didn't think drinking was an issue," he said. "It was just part of how I connected with people." What he didn't realize was that it had also become part of who he was. When drinking is normalized in every social situation, from celebrations to coping, from stress to boredom, your choice quietly disappears. You're no longer deciding to drink. You're following a script written by society and repeated until it feels like identity. Statistics back this up. More than half of American adults report drinking every month, and those numbers spiked even higher after COVID. That constant availability blurs the boundary between casual and dependent. When something is everywhere, questioning it feels like rebellion. But normal doesn't mean harmless. The second clue shows up in your schedule. Without realizing it, alcohol begins to decide where you go and who you see. You pick restaurants based on their drink menus. You skip events that don't serve alcohol, claiming they'll be boring. You stash a small bottle in your bag, just in case. Even workouts or morning routines start to vanish, because you already know how the night before will end. The event itself stops mattering. What matters is whether you can drink there. One woman told us, "If a place didn't serve alcohol, I suddenly had a reason not to go." She thought she was being selective. In reality, she was mapping her life around the next drink. That's how dependence hides in plain sight, beneath phrases like just social drinking. When everyone around you drinks, your habits look ordinary. But the standard you're measuring against is broken. Eventually, something deeper shifts. The third sign appears when alcohol stops being about celebration and becomes about survival. You start drinking not because the day was good, but because you need to steady yourself. What used to help you relax now helps you feel normal. That small shift is the hinge between habit and dependency. Psychologists call it self-medication, using a substance to manage emotion. Your brain learns the pattern quickly. Stress arrow drink, arrow relief. The relief works for a while. Alcohol boosts GABA, slowing brain activity, and you feel calm. But when it wears off, your body rebounds the other way. Cortisol and adrenaline spike, heart rate increases, and anxiety floods back stronger than before. You wake up restless, maybe irritable, and the brain whispers that one more drink will fix it. That's the trap. You begin to drink not to feel good, but to stop feeling bad. Roughly 40% of people who struggle with alcohol also battle anxiety or depression. It's not coincidence, it's chemistry. Alcohol numbs, then amplifies, then demands more to numb again. Over time, your brain forgets how to balance mood without it. You start thinking sobriety feels unnatural, when in fact, it's the absence of intoxication that reveals what's been broken. The fourth sign creeps in quietly. Dishonesty. You tell someone you had 2 drinks when you had 5. You pour vodka into a water bottle. You rotate liquor stores so the same cashier doesn't notice how often you buy. You hide bottles or empty cans, convincing yourself it's not deceit, just privacy. But these small adjustments mark a larger shift. When the truth about drinking becomes uncomfortable, the instinct is to blur it. One man told us he'd wait until his wife went to bed before drinking more. He said he wasn't trying to fool her. He was trying to fool himself into believing he was still a man without a problem. That's how denial sustains itself, by protecting identity. You tell yourself, I have a job, I pay my bills, I can't be an alcoholic. But being functional isn't the same as being free. Only about 7% of people who meet the criteria for alcohol addiction ever seek treatment. The rest stay caught in the same loop, defending the very behavior that's eroding them. Then comes the sign many mistake for strength: tolerance. You brag about how well you handle your liquor. Others get tipsy after 2 drinks, but you can down 6 and seem fine. What feels like control is actually the opposite. It's your brain adapting to toxicity. Each drink desensitizes your receptors, forcing you to consume more to achieve the same buzz. The body reads this as a normal state. The dose escalates without fanfare. A woman we spoke with said, "My friends would stop after a few, but I needed double that just to feel relaxed." That's not resilience, it's cellular fatigue. Your body's ability to metabolize alcohol doesn't mean it's safe. It means it's changing to survive. The same adaptation that makes you look composed also accelerates internal damage. Liver strain, heart stress, brain shrinkage. High tolerance doesn't make you exceptional. It makes you vulnerable in a quieter way. The data is sobering. Roughly 20% of adults consume almost 90% of all alcohol sold. The people who seem to drink a lot but handle it well are often the ones deepest in the cycle. The real danger of tolerance is that it hides the warning signs. You stop feeling drunk long before you stop being poisoned. And when that tolerance becomes routine, something else appears: defensiveness. The 6th sign. A friend comments on how often you drink and you snap back. A partner suggests taking a break and you feel attacked. A doctor asks how many drinks you have a week and you change the subject. That irritation, that sudden urge to justify, is your subconscious protecting the habit. If drinking truly didn't matter, criticism wouldn't sting. One man told us, "I had explanations ready for everything. Work stress, family issues, anything but alcohol." He wasn't defending the drink. He was defending the identity built around it. That's what dependence does. It links comfort to behavior. When someone questions the behavior, your mind treats it as a threat to comfort itself. It's not about weakness or ego. It's biology. Alcohol alters how your brain processes threat. When the body anticipates withdrawal, even mild withdrawal, stress hormones surge. So when someone challenges your drinking, your brain interprets it as danger. The defensive response isn't conscious, it's chemical. By this stage, the cracks start showing. Sleep becomes erratic. Mornings feel heavy. You wake with vague guilt you can't explain. Yet you keep repeating the cycle because stopping feels harder than continuing. You may not slur or stumble, but internally, you're fraying. The people closest to you start noticing subtle changes: impatience, edginess, emotional distance. You tell yourself you're just tired, just stressed. But your body knows. The truth is, alcohol dependency rarely announces itself with collapse. It announces itself with patterns, habits that feel harmless until they own you. You drink to relax, then to cope, then just to feel baseline. You laugh off concern. You insist you're fine. But deep down, you know something is shifting. And when that shift becomes constant, another sign emerges, one we'll explore in the next part. Because what happens next isn't just mental, it's physical. Your body starts to protest in ways you can't ignore. When alcohol begins shaping how you feel more than you do yourself, the next change often hides behind simple irritability. You tell yourself it's stress, bad luck, or exhaustion. But when you skip a night of drinking and suddenly feel restless, anxious, or short-tempered, that isn't coincidence. It's withdrawal in disguise. The body doesn't differentiate between a casual drinker and a dependent one. It only knows patterns. When a pattern breaks, chemistry revolts. You toss and turn in bed, mind racing, sweat clinging to your skin. You can't focus at work. Everything feels just slightly off. Then you drink, and like magic, the world levels out again. That quick relief reinforces a dangerous lesson. Discomfort disappears with alcohol. You start to associate calm with consumption, not with rest or peace. That's the turning point. When the drink stops being about pleasure and becomes about avoiding pain. Psychologists call it the shift from positive to negative reinforcement. You're no longer drinking to add joy. You're drinking to subtract unease. One woman told me she used to snap at her partner over tiny things when she skipped drinking for a few days. She blamed her temper, her hormones, her job. Later, she realized it was her body craving balance, the kind alcohol had been artificially creating for months. Dependence doesn't announce itself loudly. It whispers through mood swings and sleepless nights. And then something more subtle begins. Your personality starts to split. Alcohol lowers inhibition by suppressing the brain's self-control centers. That can look like confidence or fun at first. But soon, it starts revealing sides of you that you barely recognize. The quiet, careful person becomes impulsive. The kind person becomes cutting. The gentle one becomes reckless. It's not that alcohol creates a new version of you. It simply releases parts that your sober mind usually keeps contained. Friends might joke that you're a different person after a few drinks. But that difference comes with consequences. One man told us that when he was sober, he was calm and thoughtful. But drunk, he became loud, aggressive, and unpredictable. The worst part, he said, was waking up and not recognizing the person my friend saw. These emotional swings strain every relationship around you. You start apologizing more often than you talk. You promise to set limits, to eat first, to drink slower. But limits dissolve quickly because control and craving don't coexist. That's how you slip into the next stage: indifference. You stop caring what you drink, only that you drink. Your favorite beer runs out, so you grab whatever's left in the fridge. You once swore you'd never touch cheap liquor, but you do. Taste stops mattering. The experience is reduced to one ingredient: ethanol. You're no longer chasing flavor, you're chasing relief. One man, who had been a self-proclaimed wine snob, said it hit him the day he poured a half-empty bottle of cooking sherry into a glass just to take the edge off. I realized then it was never about wine, he said quietly. It was about needing something. That realization is one of the final thresholds, when alcohol shifts from being a choice to being the constant background hum of your life. Then come the consequences and the mind's ability to rationalize them. You're late to work a few times. You forget details from conversations. You snap at someone you love. Maybe there's a warning from your boss, a tense dinner with your family, or a morning you wake up unsure of what you said the night before. The logical part of you knows the pattern, but the addicted part fights back harder. You promise to slow down. You keep that promise for a few days, maybe even a week. Then one stressful moment or one lonely evening pulls you right back. A man named Paul shared that exact story. He insisted his boss was unfair when he got a formal warning for tardiness. Later, he admitted every late day came after a night of just a couple drinks. He didn't see cause and effect. He couldn't afford to. Accepting responsibility meant admitting loss of control. And for most high-functioning drinkers, that's the scariest confession of all. This cycle doesn't just damage routines, it rewrites biology. Alcohol harms more than 200 bodily processes, from your cardiovascular system to your nervous system. It weakens the immune response, disrupts hormones, and accelerates cellular aging. Statistically, alcohol kills around 178,000 Americans every year, nearly 1 every 3 minutes. Yet less than 10% of those affected ever reach for help. Not because they don't suffer, but because denial offers temporary comfort. You convince yourself that if the damage isn't visible, it isn't real. By now, you might notice your social world shrinking. That's the next sign, the slow replacement of hobbies, friends, and passions with the act of drinking itself. You skip the early morning jog because you're too groggy. You cancel dinner plans because you need a break. The guitar gathers dust. The books remain half-read. Drinking begins taking the time you once gave to joy. It becomes both the activity and the recovery from it. A woman once described it like this: I thought I'd stopped painting because I was busy. But I wasn't busy. I was either drinking or recovering from it. That's the cruel symmetry of addiction. It steals time twice. Once when you indulge, and again when you try to undo the consequences. Days blur, weekends vanish, life narrows to a loop. Drink, regret, recover, repeat. And then, without realizing it, you start losing not just time, but identity. You wake up one morning, look in the mirror, and don't recognize the person staring back. You used to drink to celebrate. Now you drink to cope with existing. You once promised yourself rules. No drinking before 5 p.m., never on weekdays, only wine. But the rules keep shifting. You break them, rewrite them, break them again. Eventually, the rules themselves become part of the ritual. A man named Leo said he woke one morning and couldn't answer the simplest question: who am I without a drink? That's the core of addiction. Not the craving for alcohol, but the loss of self beneath it. You start believing the drink gives you personality, calm, courage, ease. Take it away, and what's left feels hollow. But that hollow space isn't emptiness. It's room for recovery. The moment you recognize yourself fading is also the moment something inside starts wanting to return. It's here that denial begins to crumble. Not because the facts change, but because you finally let yourself see them. You realize the problem isn't that alcohol took over your life. It's that you quietly gave it permission. Every justification, every "I'll quit tomorrow," was a small surrender. But the same awareness that feels painful at first is the one thing that can save you. Admitting the truth isn't defeat. It's the beginning of healing. And it starts small. One honest conversation, one text to a friend, one call to a counselor. You don't need to have it all figured out. You only need to stop lying to yourself. Recovery isn't a sudden transformation. It's a slow reintroduction to who you were before alcohol muted you. The brain begins to heal. Dopamine balances. Sleep deepens. Emotions stabilize. You begin remembering what calm feels like without a drink in your hand. It's easy to think the line between casual drinking and alcoholism is clear, that you'd see it coming. But most people never do. It's not marked by the first blackout or the last hangover. It's marked by the quiet moment when drinking starts feeling necessary to feel okay. That's the invisible line so many cross without noticing. The truth is, alcoholism doesn't always wear chaos. Sometimes it wears normalcy. It looks like the coworker who never misses a meeting but drinks every night. It looks like the parent who pours a second glass after the kids are asleep. It looks like you, if you're honest. And admitting that possibility doesn't mean shame. It means awareness. If even one part of this story feels familiar, take it as a sign, not a sentence. You don't have to wait until you lose everything to begin again. Because the moment you stop trying to protect the habit, you start protecting yourself. The body you've been punishing still wants to heal. The mind you've been silencing still wants peace. You don't have to know how to start. You only have to choose to. There's life beyond the glass, and it's quieter, clearer, stronger than the noise you've been living in. The next chapter doesn't begin when you feel ready. It begins when you tell the truth. Not to anyone else, but to yourself. And once you do, the healing begins. Not with guilt, but with relief. Because what you've been calling comfort was just escape. And what's waiting beyond it isn't punishment. It's freedom.